hopefully as well. 4th and goal as well. So we're going to give it a couple minutes here. We have some friends of ours joining in. Philip Sweet, hello. But then we have this guy by the name of, I don't know if you've heard of him, Fred Thurston. He's commenting on my shirt here. I've had this shirt for years now. It's my favorite shirt. It probably has holes in it. But what's up, Fred? You know Fred Thurston, don't you?
I know him well.
Yeah.
Hi, Fred.
And then some other guy by the name of Chad Orvit.
I don't know him. I don't know him.
Weird guy.
Yeah,
don't get to know him.
Very odd. Yeah.
So, Glenn, I want to thank you for coming back and going live with me again in our group here. As I explained to you before, it's just an honor and it's a privilege to have you in our group and to be able to take this time and, just go live and be able to share your passion with all of us in regards to your collection. You have the most amazing collection I've ever seen.
Thanks.
And before we get too far into this, I asked you before, and I want to lay down it again. I have some rules here. These are my rules, not your, Glenn, not yours.
All right.
Okay. But I want everybody please to be respectful of Glenn's collection. Okay. We have some rules. Please do not message Glenn privately and say, hey, Glenn, first of all, how much is your collection worth? Nope, we're not doing that. That's a big no-no. Hey, Glenn, what kind of security system do you have for your collection? Nope, that's a big no-no. Hey, Glenn, I'm coming out to the state that you live in, and I want a personal tour of your collection. No, we don't do that, guys. You guys are pretty smart enough to understand Glenn has an incredible, incredible, incredible collection. Let's don't be evasive. Let's don't blow Glenn up. Let's don't ask him, hey, Glenn, I have something similar to yours. Will you give me a value on that? I don't think you work for, some of these third-party companies, and you probably don't want to go through all that. Is that right, Glenn?
Well, I do get asked quite a bit about values of things, and sometimes I can help if it's a vintage item. I get hit up about a lot of current day stuff, and I honestly don't know values of, Donald Driver bobblehead or something. I don't collect those. So if it's a vintage thing, I honestly don't mind hearing about it, and I do get a lot of messages about it. So I'm always open to that.
So mainly what I'm just saying is, let's just try to be respectful of Glenn. It's a privilege to have him in our group. Let's don't bug him. Let's don't have any kind of security breach or anything like that, because this is his collection. This is his passion. We all have ours. We don't want his safety or his family or his collection to be at risk by any means. So let's keep it cool, guys.
Thanks, Jim. I do appreciate that quite a bit.
Anything you want to add to that?
No, I think you covered it all. I mean, I love showing off the collection, but I do it on my Facebook page, and I show it off on Instagram, and I have a little catalog that I do, and I'm also doing a book currently. So that's how I show it off. I like. That's the only way I can show it off. I can't have a parade of people coming through here. Okay. My wife, first of all, would kill me.
Now, and before I let you, I told you earlier, it's easy with you. You could just jump in, and I sit here in awe with my jaw dropped, admiring your collection, and you will, go off. But there's a question that Chad, of course it has to be Chad, he's bugging me big time. He says, please ask Glenn before you get started. His question is, Jim, could you ask Glenn if he is wearing yellow? And he said you would understand what he's talking about.
I'm wearing my yellow pants. Yes, I am. Okay, thank you, Chad.
I'm gonna let you run free here.
Okay.
There are people that I will kind of, as questions come up, I'm going to try to jump in and, ask you these questions. But one of them that is a great one to start off with is that, where did it go? There was a gentleman, I forget his name. He asked, Glenn, when did you start collecting? What was, and it was Philip Sweet asked that. When did you start collecting? I will let you take over from there. Share your passion, your dream with us. And we'll move forward.
All right. Yeah. Well, okay. I started collecting for this collection in about 1994, actually. So it's been about 25 years. And it started with my mom giving me a lot of mementos from her years with the Green Packer Lumberjack Band in the early 40s. And that's what kind of started the whole collection. I needed to display that, and I put it up on the wall, and all of a sudden I was like, well, I've got a lot of other items to put out, and I did, and it went from a couple of walls and a shelf to a couple of big rooms. So that's kind of how it's been. And I get asked a lot of where I find things, and I get things where everybody gets them. I get them at auctions, I get them at rummage sales, I get them at Craigslist, I get them on eBay, I get them. A lot of the things I get nowadays, people just call me and ask me about them. And, they know that I collect high-end Packer memorabilia, and they might have a grandpa or a dad that had some stuff, and they'll call me, and that's how I get a lot of things nowadays. But I'm completely no different than any other Packer collector out there. Everything that we own, whether it's, modern day things that you got from the Packer Pro Shop, or if it's, a 1936 signed football with Curly Lambeau's signature on it, they're all treasures to all of us. And so everybody has great collections in my mind, and there's just various, levels of it. And I'm fortunate to have the things I have, and I'm just very, very thankful that my wife lets me do this, to be honest, because it's taken up quite a bit of real estate in our house. So yeah. So
I know you've started. You were showing me a little bit before. You've pulled out some stuff out of the cabinets there.
Yeah.
You wanted to show us some of your footballs, some of your favorite footballs.
Yeah. Well, I thought what I'll do is I'll show the footballs. I really enjoy collecting 1960s and prior footballs, signed footballs from the Packers, and so I've got quite a few of them, and so I pulled them all out of the cabinets because they're easier to see. So I thought I'd show those to everybody, and then we'll do a once around the room and kind of hit on some things. I've rearranged the room quite a bit and added quite a bit since the last live, and maybe some people will find some of the items kind of interesting. So I'm going to flip my camera around so you don't have to look at my mug anymore, and and then I'll show off some things. Try this. There it is. All right, there we go. All right, so I always have to remember to walk slowly when you're on live here. So we'll go through the turnstile into the locker room, and of course,
Glenn, we just walked into heaven.
for those that haven't seen this before, this room is carpeted with the end zone from Super Bowl 45. This is the top of the P, and if you can imagine that. The whole P is 20 feet tall, so I couldn't fit it in here. But the reason I wanted that is because I was in that end zone when Nick Collins knelt on that P, right on the top of the P, when he scored the touchdown. He intercepted the ball and scored. So that is what is in here, and everybody seems to love my love my carpeting. They come in here and they actually kiss it, which is very disturbing because anybody that watches football games knows that players are constantly spitting in the end zone. And I don't know. I normally mention that after they kiss. So then you see them wiping their lips and so forth. But anyway, this is this is our the last room that I built, and got some great stuff in here. Jim Grabowski's game jersey and Donnie Anderson's game jersey and game helmet, and Jim Taylor's items here, and his shoes, Reggie White's items, and Rogers game used jersey and helmet. Favre, the same game used items. And Mr. Starr, that is an actual jersey that came out of the Packer locker room. I'm very fortunate to have that. So, and then these are some of the various Packers along the way that I kind of like here and there. They're great, a lot of great signed jerseys from some Super Bowl teams. But the thing that I wanted to, over here, this wall here shows all the 1920s and, these are all 1920s programs here. And those are certainly very rare and very hard to find. And then we've got some Packer bulletins from the early 1930s. And they're really amazing to read, and they're fun to read, and they have great pictures in it. Got a great broadside there, a 1934 home schedule, and there's another one right there that I love. That's a 1940 schedule, just beautiful. And of course, there's that study of putting the roof on Lambeau Field to make it look just like Minnesota, which everybody would have really loved that. And so I'm glad they never did that. But what I wanted to show tonight, one of the things I wanted to show tonight was the signed balls. And I love Vince Lombardi. I love the 60s teams. Those are my years growing up, and those are all my heroes. So I kind of fell in love with collecting footballs. One of the reasons is, to be honest, is that my brother had a signed football on his dresser, and we shared a bedroom. And so it's kind of like a Sandlot story. One day in the winter, me and my friend were in the basement, and we're like, well, we got to do something. We got to throw a football. And so I said, well, I got a football. I'll go up and get one in the bedroom. And of course, it was a signed ball from the Packers. And of course, we threw it. And of course, the only signature that got smeared was Vince Lombardi. And and I never heard the end of that one. So I think I'm collecting all these balls just to make up for that faux pas that I did when I was 6. So, but anyway, so these are all 1960s team signed balls from the 60s. It's 1960 all the way through 67. Now, of course, this one here is a 1937. It's signed by Curly Lambeau on the team, and that's a 19. I'm not sure what year that is, but that one is signed by Don Hudson, Curly Lambeau, that whole group. This ball is actually kind of a sad ball because they painted it gold. They spray painted a white football gold and had the entire Packer team in the 30s sign it when they won the All-Star game. And so they played versus the All-Stars. And so all the signature, you can make out Curly Lambeau in there. You can make out all the great players of the Packers, but it's so discolored because that gold turns to black. But That's a 1950s signed ball. And then, so all of these two here were Fuzzy Thurston's footballs. If Mr. Thurston's watching, those were Fuzzy's balls, game balls that were presented to him. I'm sorry?
Grandpa's balls.
Grandpa's balls. There we go. So I love having those. And then we get over here, and then these are actually game-used 1960s footballs. Great, fantastic balls. This one was has VL on it for Vince Lombardi. That was a ball he had signed by the team for somebody. And that's a great ball there. Both this ball and this ball were signed after Super Bowl II. Lombardi had them pull them out of the ball storage, and he had them signed for various Packer personnel as a going away thing for him. So those are very, very meaningful footballs. So, it seems redundant, but it's every one of these is a different team, and they have different players on them, and a different story and a different history. So I'm really attracted to these.
They're beautiful. They're beautiful.
And
Out of all those balls, which one is your favorite?
well, boy, that's a good question.
Or if it's not sitting there, do you have a favorite ball and it's just not?
Well, I have a favorite ball versus that wouldn't be in here,
Okay.
but we'll go back in the other room and.
Okay. And that bench that all those balls were on, do you want to tell everybody about that bench a little bit?
Well, there's two different benches in there. I'll go back in there in a second.
Okay.
But this would be my favorite ball right here. That's a game used, one of two or three at most known Ice Bowl balls right there. That was a game used ball. And so that one would be my favorite.
Wow.
Never thought I'd ever own that. And then this is a game used 1965 championship ball against Jim Brown and the Browns. So that one is just a killer ball too. So these are probably my favorite balls here, and I love this trophy given to Vince Lombardi, 1962. That's a fantastic piece, and I love jewelry. All this stuff that Lombardi would give out. You can't get enough of it, and it's very, very cool. Somebody's been in my rings, it looks like. My grandkids sometimes try on my real Super Bowl rings, and that kind of gets me a little nervous.
How's that?
So,
I'm just going to go in. I'm going to try on a Super Bowl ring of Grandpa's, and
Well, they've all claimed one or two so far, and I don't want to break it to them right now. But let's see. You asked me about. Oh, yeah. So, Jim, this bench here that you're looking at, this is actually the original benches, the fan benches from City Stadium when they first built it. It was made out of wood versus the aluminum that they changed it to. So these were the actual first benches right here. And then this bench here is from County Stadium. That was 1960s, 50s. And there's actually a picture of Ray Nitschke and Dave Robinson sitting on it. Then over here, that is one of three known Ice Bowl benches in the country. And that one's easily one of my favorite items right there, because it's so rare to have it, and it's obviously got such an incredible Packer history to it. And that's a goal line marker from the from the Ice Bowl, and Jim, you and I talked about it earlier, and that's a bunting that was around the stadium for the Ice Bowl, and it's signed by Bart, and I love that piece. I've had that quite a while, and I'm trying to think if, yeah, it doesn't show it in here.
Hold that there for a minute so people could see. There's one of the goal post markers, or the goal line
right there.
markers.
Yeah.
Now that helmet to the right, right there,
Yeah.
you have one of those helmets, I believe, as well.
I do. I'll pan over to that. It's so big, I have to put it up on the ceiling. So yeah, that's one of those. But I thought this picture had a bunting in it, but it doesn't.
I've told
anyway.
you that's one of my favorite pieces right there, that bunting.
Yeah, it's always been one of mine too. It's unbelievable. Since we're over here in the bunting area, I'll move one of these bags. It's funny, I posted in my Facebook account, I started going through some of these bags one day, and I found like a half dozen pairs of game shoes, and I found just all sorts of stuff that I didn't know I had packed in these bags to make them puffed up, to fill them up so they weren't flat, and they're still full of just full of stuff. And so I'll have to go through there. Who knows what I have in there, but that is Vince Lombardi's coat. That was a huge acquisition for me this year, and I've been after that for many, many years, probably 12, 14 years. It was in auction back then, and I couldn't, to be honest, I couldn't afford it at that point. And it got a little high, and it just came available again, and so I was able to get it. So I'm very excited to have that.
I got to ask a question in regards to that. Most people are wondering, have you tried it on?
I'm gonna be honest. I did, and the seamstress was able to sew it back together after I ripped the entire back out. I'm just kidding. No, I did put it on, Jim, and Vince was not. He was a wider shouldered guy. He really was.
Somebody like Chad Orbit or Doug would put that on naked and run around their house in that.
Yeah, that's why I won't have Chad to the house anymore. He said he was going to do that here, and so I said I'm not going to have him here. So
it's an incredible piece. It really is. The man Vince Lombardi wore that jacket.
I'm not sure if I have. I want to just see. I've not done this before, so let's see here.
Check the pockets.
Wouldn't that be something?
Oh man!
All right, I'm going in for a close look here. All right, so. There we go.
Wow.
There's Vince Lombardi, 11/7 of 66 is when they did this coat for Vince. And from what I understand, that was an off week on their schedule. And so he went in and had a coat fitted for him. And I'm just thrilled to have it. It's so cool.
Well, when you think of Vince, you think of him in that type of coat.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. He was always in some kind of a coat like this. He had a couple of different colors that he'd wear, and lighter color. I think he wore at games. He had church. I'm sorry that I'm offline here, but I was buttoning his coat. I don't want to have Vince looking bad. But this one may have been a church coat or who knows what. But anyway, certainly one of the hardest things to get is anything of Vince Lombardi's. So, so anybody that doesn't know, this is how the collection started. This is my mom. She was the first majorette with the Green Bay Packer Lumberjack Band in 1940. And here's Curly and Wilner Burke talking about it. And I got lots of great newspaper articles on my mom and just incredible pictures and stuff. This is one of her contracts that she got. She was paid $2 a game to be the baton twirler. That's her out front right there. And at halftime, and that's at Old City Stadium there at East High School. And so these are fun things to have for me. I got some great programs from those years as well as part of it. These are her batons. She gave me her batons from back then.
Now,
So
don't you have a drum? There it is.
I do. Yeah.
But I was going to say, don't you have a drum? Then. Does it bother you at all that somebody like me knows your room inside and out? I've never been there. Does that scare you a little bit?
That's very scary. I'm going to have to watch my security because
right.
I'm going to wind back my security footage and see if, unless you've been talking to Orvit too much. I don't know.
Maybe we have talked about your room, and he's been there. He's seen it. I know it took about a week to mop up all the drool.
Oh, it did. It did. He is a character, and he loves coming here. Unfortunately, his company has get-togethers here, and in my city, and so I've had to put up with him a couple of times now. So he is worth his weight in gold, though.
But we are going to as well. Jim's rule number 3: we are not asking Glenn for a visit, a tour of his home.
Well, yeah, Chad and I are personal friends, just like you and I are, Jim. And I certainly, just like anybody, you have friends to your house and people and
Sure.
That's kind of where I have to draw the line. Unfortunately, I love all Packer fans, trust me, but
that's why we do this live.
Yeah, and honestly, I years back, maybe 8-10 years ago, I used to give tours to people, and it was just unbelievable to me how they'd show up with kids and not supervise them, and they'd be grabbing a signed football or this or that, and it's like, oh my God. So it was just kind of a rule I had to put into place, and I hate it because I love, what good is a collection if you can't show it off? It's like a museum that doesn't open, and I love showing it off, but it's like, this is a perfect venue for it. It enables me to show it off, and everybody gets to see my things, and everybody's happy. So
right. So
I love showing it off to everybody.
Right. All right. I'll shut up.
Okay. Well, no, you're doing good. These are some of the, these are those cleats that I talked about. I found all of these cleats, Donald Driver and Leroy Butler and Aaron Rodgers and Antonio Freeman, and I'm not sure who that was. All of those were in that bag. And a lot of these helmets were in there. I didn't realize how many helmets that I had, signed by all the guys, But back here, yeah, I've got a couple of great old trunks and old Super Bowl I and II hats. Those were fan hats that you'll see in a lot of the old pictures and video of the game, and a lot of sideline items, a lot of player worn coats. Let's see here. This one here is Brett Favre's coat from the year they beat the. Well, there's, I guess it's a year they beat Carolina in the NFC Championship, and you can see his number down there, I think.
Yeah.
Number 4. And that's Sterling Sharp's sideline coat there. That's a coat from the 60s there. Got more trunks here, player trunks, and that is Paul Horning's Player of the Year trophy from '61, and I have Ray Nitschke's Player of the Year trophy from 1968.
Wow.
I love those two. I've had these quite a while, actually, and just don't see those anymore. I guess maybe because I have them. I don't know how many more there are out there of Packers that had them, but anybody that knows me knows I'm actually crazy about pennants, and I've got just a crazy collection of vintage pennants. You see a lot of the blue and gold here, which is my favorite. Surprisingly, years ago when I started, I passed up a lot of the blue and gold stuff because I was like, wow, that just doesn't look like Packers to me. And oh boy, do I wish I had not. I wish I hadn't passed up some of that stuff, but you live and learn. But yeah, these are just incredibly old pennants from the 1920s and 30s and 40s. I've got probably over 100 different pennants from between 1920 and 1968. So it's hard to believe that there's that many pennants out there, but there was. And so I'm always looking for those. I still have about 4 or 5 that I don't have, and I'm going to find them at some point. And the hunt is getting harder now, and that's the fun about with any collecting, and what I did on a lot of my things, I kind of, all right, I said, okay, I want to collect pennants. So I got real serious about it. I went out and collected pennants, and that's what I did. I collected and collected and collected, and I'm glad I did, because a lot of them really disappeared off the market. And like these are many of them are such rare colors that you just never see out there anymore. And likewise on this side, you get lots of incredible variations of pennants, and just beautiful pieces of work. And so what I do with my collecting is I just put my sights on something, whether it's pennants or whether it's yearbooks. There was a time where I went through and I said, all right, I need to get every yearbook there is. And I kind of did the same thing with bobbleheads. I decided I was going to get every bobblehead that was ever made. And I think I got close to it. My wife absolutely thinks I'm nuts that I have that many bobbleheads, but I think they're cool. So
They're awesome.
but that's kind of how I've approached it, whether it's the helmets or whatever it's been in my collection. I've just kind of been I get very serious about my collecting, and I'll go out and I'll let's just look at this, for instance, the run of championship. These are all Packer championship programs and tickets. I've put together every single Packer championship program and ticket that the Packers have been at. So I found that works well for me in collecting versus skipping from one thing to the other and so forth. Now it's like the draft. If something comes up that is really great, you want to take it, but you want to buy it. But
otherwise I kind of keep pretty focused at what I'm doing to complete my collections.
Could we talk about that just for a second? Because it's one of the things that you and I talked about was,
Yeah.
guys, when you see this collection, this is amazing. There's nothing else out there like that. Don't try to do it. That's my recommendation. Okay. Doug, Lutz, Lutz, hear me out. Don't try to do it. Here's why, guys, is you do lose focus, and it in some ways does not become fun. Like Glen just mentioned, he focused on one thing. He kept that passion and he kept going for that one thing until he completed it. Try to do that same thing and have fun with this, but don't hurt yourself financially either. I've seen that over the years. A lot of times people will go financially in debt to do this. Take your time, have fun with it. That's what collecting is all about.
I think that's a valid point. It's a tough one because, you see, I mean, I see collections, trust me, there's collections that I know that have things in them that are incredible compared to mine. And, so that makes me want to drive a little bit more and try to do things. And you are entirely right. Sometimes it makes you do stupid moves, makes you make stupid moves. And you just buy things to buy them and without really thinking about it. And
I've done it many times.
Oh, I think we've all done it, and it's, so I started off by saying, I love that everybody collects whatever they collect, whatever it is, because everybody has different budgets and whatnot. But, for me, instead of filling up a room full of knickknacks and so forth, I'd rather take collectively all that money and buy something really nice. I'd rather have one nice signed football, a 60 signed football than $2,000 worth of t-shirts in a room, so, but everybody has their own passion. So, I'm not criticizing, and I'm not telling anybody what to do, but that's just my opinion. So,
and I just thought about that. Please, Doug knows I always give Doug a hard time, or James or Chad. I'm not pointing out Doug by any means. I'm just using it as example. Guys, he has an amazing collection. Do what you can on your end. Some people, it might be soda pop cans. Other people, it might be footballs or whatever the case may be, but have fun with it.
Right. This is one thing that I can show you, like license plate toppers. All of a sudden I decided, okay, I need to find every license plate topper. So, this is a collection that I put together of all, old license plate toppers from the 1930s to the 1960s. And I love that collection. But I got them at decent prices. I didn't force the issue. This is another collection that I put together, is all press photos. A lot of these photos you probably have seen in the Green Bay Press Gazette. That's where a lot of them came from. But these are the original press photos that were in a lot of books and a lot of, obviously the newspapers. But I love that collection. But I just find it fun to just kind of do it in sections like that, and it kind of goes smooth for me that way. So, so I've been showing you different things. I've got some great banners from the 1950s and 60s when they opened. Certainly when they opened. Well, I guess it was New City Stadium back then. It was going to be Lambeau Field at some point, but the 65 championship, or maybe 62 championship. And so those are always great items to find. And I don't find them that often, and I don't see them that often, but certainly any of you out there that are collectors, that's something that you should always keep your eye on, are banners like that, because they're getting harder and harder to find. And one thing that I did, with my collection, I wanted to display it the right way. And so I found, when I first started my collection, I found a picture, looking for it as we're talking. I found a picture of the old Packer locker room with Bart Starr standing in front of it. I think Vince was in front of it with a Coke bottle, maybe. I'm looking for it in one of these lockers. Oh, here it is. Okay, here it is. So this is the original Packer locker room here. And you can see they had expanded metal in between the lockers. So I went out and found expanded metal, and I kind of copied them, even down to the hooks and so forth. I copied them, to the T. So I thought, if you're going to do something like that, you want to make it look presentable. You want to have it attractive. So it also gave me by doing those lockers, it gave me a place to put my sideline jackets, coats, and sweaters like you see up here. So that worked out really well. When I expanded into the other room through the turnstile, then I looked at the new Packer lockers and I built those. And luckily, my dad taught me how to swing a hammer, so I was able to build these myself, because I'm sure they cost a lot to have somebody make them, but I had fun doing it. And of course I do printing, so I'm able to do my own locker plates and so forth, and kind of did the G's on the bottom, just like you see in the Packer locker room nowadays. So I think that's part of the magic with doing a collection is displaying it properly and getting the most out of it. And I've really tried to do that as well as I could. I will admit I'm running out of room. I've completely run out of room in these two areas, and I don't foresee me getting any more real estate from my wife. I'm trying, but I don't think that's going to happen, Jim.
How much time do you actually spend in these rooms on a daily, weekly? I don't think I would ever see my wife.
You know what? I'm up here more than you would think. I think I mentioned to you, Jim, that I'm writing a book on collecting and on my my endeavors over the 25 years of all the stories that I've encountered on some of the items I've found, and just my family history with the Packers. And my mom and dad were friends with Don Hudson, and my dad worked as a design artist with the company that did the original Packer G's and on the helmets. And he I'll go over here. He had stacks of them. The original decals. He had stacks of them in the basement in his sign shop. And I thought, when I was a kid, I thought the G, it was like 5. I thought the G stood for Glen. So I took like a whole bunch of them and stuck them everywhere. Trust me, every night I'm up here, I'm like, why the heck did you do that? Those things are worth a fortune. But anyway, that's why I'm writing the book. And here's a little mock-up of it. It shows the cover of it. It's going to be about 160 pages, and it's going to be a hardcover book, and it's going to replace the soft cover book the catalog that I have now, and which is great. But all the current one has just pictures in it. It doesn't have any stories. And I talk a little bit about collecting and about just things that I've run into over the time. And I think many people find it fascinating and fun to look at. There's 80 full pages of full color pictures, so it's going to be pretty fun to look at for Packer fans. So
when that comes out, we want to make it clear that we'll help advertise it best we can in our groups. But I know Mike Warchek is watching right now. Maybe we could throw in a plug out there. Hey, Mike, let's get this book into your store, man. I'm
Hey,
sure
Mike.
Mike would probably be down with that. I can't talk for him. That's between you guys, but I'm just trying to,
Exactly.
shoot that out there to Mike.
I appreciate it.
Probably Amazon. It's going to be all over the place. So we want to say, if anything, guys, be prepared, get ready, and get one of these books. I'm going to buy one, that's for sure.
I appreciate that. And I'll definitely, as we mentioned, Jim is, we'll be giving some to the group, and I'm going to have you raffle them off as you do many fine items, and have some fun doing that. So
awesome. Thank you, Glenn. Thank you.
Yeah. So is there any questions that come through?
There is. There's a bunch. So I'm gonna run through some of them. One of them that came through was, out of all your memorabilia, do you have an all-time favorite? Or is that too hard?
That is just the killer question that I get all the time. And it's like, well, what would you say? I don't know. I honestly don't know what my favorite thing. Immediately my mind goes to the ice bowl ball. That might be my favorite item, but I don't know. That is one of the toughest questions I ever get. And when I'm done with the program tonight, and every day after that, I will be thinking of trying to come up with an answer to that, because I never can. I love the ice bowl ball. I love Lombardi's coat. That's a relatively new acquisition for me. So I guess that's the thing. My favorite thing changes a lot. So, I love everything that I have. Otherwise I wouldn't have it. So, I look at, Bart Starr's practice jerseys that I have, and I'm like, geez, Bart wore those at practice. I'm like, what? How can you not fall in love with that? So I don't know. I'm going to say, wow. Then there's Bart Starr's playbook. I don't know. I wish I could tell you. I don't have a good answer. Boy, that was a long answer for no answer. Man, that was awful. Sorry about that.
No problem. How about this one? We just last week, I don't know if you saw it or not, we had a famous guy by the name of Don Horn.
I did. Yeah, I did see that. Yes.
Do you have any Don Horn memorabilia?
Well, you know what? I bought a beautiful helmet from Don that I didn't receive yet, but this, I think, one of these coats is Don Horn's coat.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah. One is Donnie Anderson and one is Don Horn. And I think it's this one right here.
Okay.
I'd have to take it down to find out. And I don't want to do that right this second.
Nope.
But because it's got the number on the front. So, yeah.
Let's see.
Don Horn is probably one of the, he's just another incredible 60s Packer guy. Just they're all cut from the same thread, and he is just the nicest guy to talk to and to listen to. I'm envious that you had that time to speak with him, because he's such a great guy.
Afterwards, me and Doug, we talked for a few minutes afterwards, and we were just both like kids in a candy shop, just excited to talk with him. And I try to tell people all the time, we are so blessed to have you and, Fred Thurston's grandson and all these great people in our group.
Yeah.
We need to take the time. We need to watch these videos and appreciate them. I'm in awe of your room, and I just sit here and I'm like, man, I could call up Glenn and talk to Glenn and talk football with him and get his knowledge base and that kind of stuff. It's such a privilege that we have. this group and you and your history and with your mom and everybody, man. It's just such a great feeling that like-minded people could get together and talk the way that we do.
It is incredible. It really, really is. I enjoy watching all of the lives that you do, and
Thank you.
it is amazing all the people that belong to it. It really does amaze me.
Let me answer one. It's kind of a no-no one. We don't ever want to ask Glen, hey, Glen, sell me something. But I've bought years ago a piece from you. When Glen wants to sell something, he'll make it known. But don't reach out to him and say, do you want to, could I buy something from you? If you have something to sell, like us, the rest of us, he'll put it in one of our groups or something like that. He'll make it known. But you do sell stuff from time to time.
You know what? I do sell a lot of stuff, and only because I acquire, collections from people. I just, some time ago, I think you'll remember, I had a whole bunch of stuff that I rattled through, and it was at bargain prices, and everybody snapped it up. And, I basically, a lady had lost her husband, and, she had no idea what to do with all of this stuff. She was from West Texas, and, to sell it individually and to ship it out each individually and blah, blah, blah. Well, I have a company that I, have a shipping department. It's easy for me to do. So I just wrote her a check for the whole thing, put her mind at ease. And so then I basically took everything, I divided it by the number just to get my money back. And it worked out exactly to the penny, actually. So, but everybody got things at just incredible prices. So everybody was happy about it. But, I have, a storeroom at I have a storage room full of Packer stuff in bins, and little by little I go through it, and I get rid of things. But like you said, when I do that, you're the first ones that know, because I put it on your cell site or so forth. But if it's in this room, no, I would never sell anything in here.
I think your son might have some words with you if that happened. And your grandchildren.
Yeah. Well, yeah, all the way down to my grandchildren, who have also already claimed things, and they don't realize that some of the stuff is a little pricey. So
then there would be Chad Orvit, myself, Doug, and we're kind of your grandchildren too. So
Chad, you have to frisk when he leaves, because he'll fill his pockets when
I
when
bet he
he's
would.
here.
I bet he would. Here's another question for you. Which Lombardi piece do you have that do you feel was the most fun collecting? You had mentioned the coat, Vince Lombardi's coat. Could that be it? Was that maybe the most fun? It sounds like it took many, many years.
Without question, that would be the, I've got a lot of Lombardi autographs on photos and on, everything. But that would have to, definitely, without question, that would have to be the thing that was the most fun to collect, because, I've been, I've been in a lot of magazines and on TV and radio or whatever. And, a lot of these people ask, well, what's the one thing you don't have? Or what's the one thing you wish you had? And I always brought up that coat. I always brought up, well, there's two things. I wish I had the football that my brother used to have, that was signed by Don Hudson with his birth date on it. And Don brought it to the hospital for my mom when she had my older brother. And that was in my bedroom forever. And my brother at some point needed some cash, so he sold it, which that's great. But I looked and looked and looked forever to find that ball. Well, I'd always mention that, and I always mention this Lombardi coat, because it was like, oh, I mean, there was nothing I could do. I mean, either you can afford something or you can't. And,
Right.
I just wasn't in that place back then that I'm fortunate enough to be in now. And so, yeah, for it to come back around, and the way it came back around, which I won't go through that, but the way it actually happened was just amazing. Somebody actually contacted me and wanted help with, with this collection because the husband had died, and it turned out that that's what it was. And anyway, she wouldn't sell it to me. She would not sell it to me, even though I showed her that I was the second bidder on it. And anyway, she wanted like $250,000 for it, and she actually put it on eBay for $250,000. But certainly didn't pay that. Trust me. But it finally went to auction, and so I chased it down. I just happened to see it in an auction, and I was like, "Are you kidding me?" And so anyway, it turned out great. But that was one of the funnest things. I was like a kid in a candy store when that box. I had it flown next day air to me, and I mean, I ripped it open like. Oh my God, it was like Christmas morning. It really was. So, yeah, that was a good question.
What about non-Packers memorabilia? Do you have any other teams? Any other players?
I hate to admit this.
I do.
Oh,
I do. I
wow.
love to
That's a
meet
big.
Jim
Oh,
Kelly.
yeah. Okay. Well, I'll be honest. Okay. Let's just see here. I don't want to. Oh, hello. Okay, here you go. Mike Zimmer.
Okay.
Skull Vikings.
Head coach.
Head coach.
Okay.
Friend of mine.
Very cool.
My son Tommy and his daughter dated in high school, and when he was with the Cowboys, and my wife was best friends with his wife, and of course she's passed away a few years back, unfortunately, but we remained friends. And so I said, Mike, I've got to have, this sounds odd because he knows my room, he's been here, and I said, I know this sounds odd, but I've got to have I got to ask you for an autograph now that you're head coach. And I said, there was no other team that you could pick than the Vikings. I said, of all the teams you could go to, why the Vikings? And so anyway, it's fun to.
His trophy room, we're not going to go into that, right?
Well, I heard it got looted actually, and all the trophies were stolen. So I know that's not right. It's too soon. Never mind.
What about, let me ask you another strange question. I'm into collecting just Green Bay Packer memorabilia. Like our good friend Doug, he sent me an eBay listing. He goes, check this out. This is 1919, a beer case, pre-alcohol days, Prohibition. Check it out, man. I love this. I'm watching it. I want to bid on it. Well, guess what I did? I went and I stole it out from underneath him.
I like that.
He knows it. He knows it's a gift. It's his. But I wanted to surprise him with that. It says Heigemeister on it, 1919, all that kind of stuff. Do you have any kind of Green Bay area or stuff that would go along with Green Bay Packers, but it's not really the Packers?
I do. However.
Oh, I'm tricking you tonight, Glenn. I'm stumping you.
That one was a tough one. I do actually have quite a bit of stuff, but I don't have it here. I have it at my office at work.
Okay.
I keep a lot of because I'm out of room here. I have a lot of things in my office at work, but I do have like old old stuff from Green Bay restaurants and,
Okay.
just, you name it, anything Green Bay, I have, but, yeah, I just don't have room in here for it. Yep.
Right. Well, it's Packer room. Packer room. What
Yes.
about what would be the oldest? And I'm reading some of the comments here. What is your oldest item that you know of just offhand?
Uh, Probably, one of my, well, I've got a 1927 pennant, um, which is that red one up there. Oh, sure. Here we go. It's that red one up there. It says Green Bay. It's 1927. Has a name, actually has the score of the game written on the back of it.
Ah,
But I think in the other room I have older stuff into the early 20s. But this is like finding a needle in a haystack.
well, probably some of those programs up there probably date back really, really old.
Yeah, I mean, the earliest program I have is 1925, but I've got, this is from September 11th of 29. Yeah, that's a good question. I know I've got stuff back to 1923. I think that's the oldest thing that I have, but I don't know where I have it right now.
Okay. What about Nick is asking, what item are you looking for next? And I don't know if that's fair to answer because then other people would probably be chasing after it.
Well, Doug would. I mean, Doug's the only one that would do that.
Right.
So,
so I don't know if that's fair to answer, and you don't have to, but I'm sure you have stuff on the radar.
Probably an inflatable Bud Light, Bud Light couch. I'm going to say something that I wouldn't get because then Doug will go out and get that. So
Good.
no.
Okay, but there are items that's on your radar. You don't want to say what they are.
Yeah, there definitely are items, and I without question, there's items out there that I want. I've passed up on Bart Starr's cleats at one time, and there's all sorts of things. But like you said, yeah, I don't want to really go through the list, but yeah, there are a few things yet, but I will say that I'm not going hog wild on buying and collecting things anymore. I'm more just kind of in the mode of enjoying it, and I'm having fun putting that book together. And the problem with buying things is I have to keep changing the book, and before it goes to press. So my art guy said, enough. It's just, we keep adding pages to it, and this is getting crazy. So
I'm going to ask you one more question. I probably know the answer to it. It would either be a head coach or Bart Starr, but who would your favorite Packer of all time be?
And it could be a coach, right?
Could be.
Yeah.
Or it could be your mom.
Yeah, it could be. My mom gave me a great football. I'm just looking at it right now, and it says, to my number one fan. And so that says a lot right there.
Yeah.
But besides mom, which is a little odd, when I was growing up, my mom was in the Packer Hall of Fame. Her picture was up there, and it was kind of odd to tell the guys, hey, my mom's in the Packer Hall of Fame, because it's kind of odd. But I hate to be so generic, but I've always just loved Bart Starr, and I don't know. I wish I could make up a story and tell you that it was somebody else, but there isn't. It's definitely Bart. Yeah, always has been.
Well, Glenn, we're going towards the end here. I don't want to keep you too late, but and I know I'm putting you on the spot on this as well, but being a Packer fan, what does it just kind of mean to you? What does it mean to you? When I stop and think about it, I think of tradition. What does being a Packer fan mean to you?
Well, yeah, to me, it's just history, and we are so blessed to be Packer fans. You look at some of the other cities, man, I'd hate to be a Seattle Seahawks fan. And I'd hate to be, some of these other, teams that have just, like the Tennessee Titans, let's say,
Right.
we have 100 years of history. We're in a town that has no business being a National Football League city. And somehow we did it. Somehow they did it. And it was through the blood, sweat, and tears of all these players that came before the guys that play today. And people like Curly Lambeau and, Spike, what was this guy's name? Gerald Clifford and Speckelman was his name. All these guys that went out there, and the Hungry Five that went out and sold tickets to try to keep the Packers together, when they were in their infancy. And, you look at this and you read, I mean, there's so many incredible books on the Packer history to read, and you read them and it's like, how did they do it? How did they get through it? And, so many teams just don't have that, well, we're here because so-and-so owned a chewing gum company and he bought us. That's not how the Packers are, and that's not what we are. And we're everybody that's a fan of the Packers knows why it's so special, I think. And that's what it means to me. I'm just a history buff with the Packers, and I love every bit of it. So and that's why I'm so enthralled in this. I just keep collecting things because that's a piece of history that I want to protect, and I want to just like Fred Thurston's Fuzzy's blanket in here. Let me turn my Fuzzy Thurston's blanket. That's just a piece of history that that I want to protect. I want to take care of it, and because there's just so much, so many stories behind all of this stuff, and just those bags laying there. What history has those bags seen? Through the '60s and the championships and the cold weather and whatnot, and all the way back to Curly Lambeau's stuff and Don Hudson's things. It's just amazing. These old helmets that they used to wear. I mean, you're not going to find a Carolina Panther that ever wore that, So that's what it means to me in a long-winded response.
Well, in ending this, I got to throw my 2 cents in, like I always do, loudmouth Jim. But
You're good.
Collecting, it doesn't have to be. You have the most amazing collection, okay? But for me, my thing has been doing these lives with all of you guys, something that I could sit back and I could share with my kids, my son, and say, look, this is what I did. Or I have 8 by 10 pictures of me with football players. Or it might be, hey, a favorite memory of sitting down watching a game with your son or your daughter. And that's what the Packers are all about.
Yeah, it is.
We all have our own unique way of celebrating the love of the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah.
We don't have to be envious or jealous or angry that Glen has such an incredible history there of the Green Bay Packers, because you could create your own just by sitting down watching a football game with your family.
That's exactly it. Yep. History starts today.
Absolutely.
I mean, it really does. So, down the road, your kids are always going to look back at this as their glory years, just like I'm doing with my 60s flashback here. So don't take it for granted. Time goes too quick. I can't believe this weekend is Gail and I's 40th wedding anniversary. So I'm doing a lot of reflecting at how fast time has gone, and you know, I think about this collection, and it's already been 25 years that I've been doing this, and it's just kind of scary how quick the ticker goes around the. So enjoy every minute of it with your kids, and enjoy the years with the Packers. We've just been spoiled rotten.
Absolutely.
Uh,
And you know what? All the other teams, we don't feel sorry for you. We don't.
no, not at all. Not.
You know what? We appreciate you because we have to have teams to beat up on.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. Yeah.
Well, Glenn, happy anniversary. 40 years, incredible, man.
Yeah.
Could we bug you when it gets close time to that book signing? Maybe we'll go live again, get that all set up. We'll do some major promoting for you.
Love to.
You know how I like to end it, and it's 3 simple words, man. And I want to thank you very much. And what was that?
I hope it's Go Pack Go.
That's it. That's it.
Oh, okay. Well, I was going to mention, I would like to see Chad Orvitz's collection sometime on the live as well.
I would love to as well, if we could get him away from that Snap-on truck.
Yeah, well, that's just the cover. It really is.
I will bug him about that, and we'll make that happen.
But yeah, I'd love to come on again, and I hope everybody enjoyed a look around the room.
Okay, Glenn, you have a wonderful night, my friend. Thank you again, and I will talk with you soon.
All right, buddy. All right.
Have a good night. Bye-bye.